I'm happy to be here. I'm exceptionally happy that your board has stayed with this. It was March of last year when we came for the original workshop. And there's been a good deal to be encouraged about since then. I want to sound a kind of hopeful note today. One of our attorneys admonished me not to come here today and give you the parade of horribles at the Salton Sea. I think we've established that we're past the parade of horribles, and there's good reason to be encouraged. I also want to commend to you the letter I read from the joint letter from the NGOs. I thought that was especially well wrought. And particularly Mr. Cohen and Kim Delfino, who've stayed with this for years, longer than a reasonable person should. And I think they will tell you.
For unreasonable people.
I think they will tell you that that there's reason for hopefulness at the Salton Sea. I also want to commend Mr. Wilcox. I think he's an able man. I think he needs help, but I think the state has the right guy, and you have the technology. I commend the governor, who, unlike his predecessor, finally stopped punting on Salton Sea. And these tentative sort of halting steps toward a renewable peace at the Salton Sea, that's also a reason for encouragement. So what is needed? I think that what's missing is the sense of urgency to match the scale of the problem. You need a roadmap with real performance benchmarks that people in the region can have confidence in. You're going to have real leadership, and it can only come from the state that recognizes rather than resists this expansive arsenal of mitigation tools, including renewable energy resources that are unique to the Salton Sea. I think it's important to map backward, not from 2017, but from 2016. Because if you don't get at a sort of common unifying vision of what the Salton Sea looks like longer term and how these incremental projects fit into that, then 2017 is too late. I think that everybody needs to remind themselves and steel themselves that the baseline ought to be a smaller but sustainable Salton Sea. I don't know of anybody who's opposed to more and new sources of water that might go into that troubled lake one day. But a better course, it seems to me, is to deal with the lake that we have in front of us and the problems on the ground right now in 2016. I think we need to acknowledge that there are two droughts. There's this terrible one in California that your board's dealt with so capably, and there's the other drought in the Colorado River Basin, and it's also a very serious drought. I think you're in year 14, and as they invariably do, other water contractors look to our water district to help them solve that problem. That is a conversation we can't even partake in as long as we have this situation at the Salton Sea. So what's next? Well, I hope that what's next is a concerted effort based on actually solving this problem rather than sidestepping it. I think that that what we really need to do is to agree that the focus needs to be on the sustained public good that can be done at the Salton Sea. The water reliability problem in Southern California that we can alleviate. The preservation of the environment. A climate change legacy worthy of a progressive state like California. A public policy choice that sets the stage for victory. Remember that old movie, Victory at Sea? Victory at the Salton Sea. So to wrap up, I promise. In January, I said to your board that we could live with an incremental approach to solving this problem at the Salton Sea, but we could not accept an incremental vision. It is time that kills projects, and time is clearly no friend to the Salton Sea. What we need now is achievable goals, measurable results, and both have to fit in to an overarching plan. That sort of plan, that vision of what restoration looks like, isn't something you can arrive at in increments unless those increments add up to a coherent whole. I said before that 2016 would be, in our view, the proving ground of whether or not we make it to 2017. We filed our petition with your board because we were serious, and we remain so. In many ways, we've never been closer to a viable solution to this problem that has vexed water agencies and policymakers for too long. But as you can see, the actual progress on the ground is not very much different from when we talked to you a year ago. So in that respect, we're still 1,000,000 miles away. That divergence between being so close to a mutual victory, at least in terms of a roadmap going forward, and the paucity of actual projects on the ground, on the exposed lake bed, that's the distance that we have to close. And I look to your board to help us do it. I thank you for staying with it, as I said before. And amazingly, I turn the balance of my time over to Mr. Cordova.
Can I ask you before you do that, can you go into a little bit of detail, not too much, about the request for proposals that that you have put into your letter?
That's actually the County of Imperial's proposal, and
okay.
Mr. Cordova can speak to it.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, board members and Chairman Marcus. I appreciate the time here today. I'm here on behalf of the County of Imperial as its CEO, and I offer the following with regards to the report on Salton Sea projects. Well, I truly appreciate the efforts made in the development of that report, including those efforts of the Natural Resources Agency and other stakeholders. Quite frankly, the project implementation dates reported simply do not meet expectations. I sat earlier today reviewing some of my notes from past meetings and began thinking about the Salton Sea Task Force Agency Actions document released last October. One of the task force actions asked the Natural Resources Agency to accelerate project implementation and delivery. As Assistant Secretary Bruce Wilcox stated earlier today, we need to get something done now. That's a direct quote. We couldn't agree more. The county couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, we don't see it here in this report. Although perhaps defined as shovel-ready, the projects failed to meet the Sea's immediate needs. The report identifies the earliest project construction start date as the last quarter of 2016, and that's the Red Hill Bay project that only covers 420 acres. The next project is the Species Conservation Habitat Phase 1, and that project covers 640 acres, and that has its challenges and is expected to begin construction in the first quarter of 2017, far behind the reported start date of actually this month, April of 2016. And by the way, these aren't new projects. These projects have been in the pipeline for some time now. And I'm not saying that as a criticism, I'm saying that as an acknowledgement that these projects take time. They really do, and we know that. But we still need immediate action at the sea. Other anticipated construction start dates identified in the report are listed as 2018 and 2019. It's just not acceptable. Even if all the timelines are met, and it was reported here earlier today, there will be thousands of acres, 17,000 acres of land, exposed playa, left unmitigated at the sea. That 17,000 acres, I was looking through the internet real quick, equates to half the size of San Francisco, the city and county of San Francisco. That's huge. In light of all this, and out of necessity and an extreme desire to ensure public health in Imperial County, the county would like to offer up a simple proposal, a proposal we believe that will not only meet task force actions, but the immediate needs and expectations of Salton Sea stakeholders. A proposal that will provide for essential, true, short-term projects and provide critical, immediate results. A proposal consistent, I believe, with the report with respect to the identified areas not designated for habitat cells at page 11, and I'll read it to you. The report states these areas will be evaluated for potential PM emissions, and if deemed emissive, will be treated with a PM suppression methodology. The evaluation process for determining additional procedures for evaluating emissive soils and the process for evaluating BACM is currently under development. The thought is to issue an RFP to private landowners or to just landowners to develop new air quality mitigation measures and other test projects to meet BACM on their land. These measures, consistent with the new or newly adopted APC Rule 804 that Brad earlier had discussed with you, could include, and he went through the list, I'll just go through a couple of them right now, surface roughening, moat and road, vegetation enhancement, as well as any other well-reasoned, scientific-based dust suppression methodology to cover the exposed playa. We need to give people the opportunity to do that, to develop what is best for their land at the sea. This RFP solution would provide an additional tool in the mitigation toolbox. Again, that's what Brad said, and it's with respect to the new Rule 804, which we believe would significantly be less expensive, would eliminate continued delay, and most importantly, providing needed immediate action. Don't interpret this, though, our offer in any way to release the state from its obligation at the sea. In Imperial County, we try to do the best we can. We're considered a self-help county. As a matter of fact, just recently and not too long ago, the county issued RFPs. We developed a program and implemented a public benefit renewable energy program to assist the conversion of ag land to solar. We see this as much the same. That program includes an agricultural as well as a community benefit component. Via an RFP process in the county, we were able to contribute, and we're continuing with the RFP process, significant resources to much needed ag and community projects. One is the County of Imperial committed significant funding to reopen a beef processing plant in Imperial County, which will provide hundreds of jobs to the local community, support our agriculture, and create revenue for the county. And it's through the program that we developed in Imperial County and implemented. One other thing, as the report points out, a hindrance for shovel-ready projects is a requirement to, quote, coordinate and negotiate with private landowners. We believe a program like this, providing for funding for local projects, could help eliminate and resolve that issue. During a local Salton Sea workshop on April 11th, hosted by the county and IID, numerous residents stood up and asked for immediate action. And we believe this RFP effort would help with that immediate action and produce immediate results. And I was telling Kevin earlier today, you know what, there's many words have described what needs to be done at the Salton Sea. I can only think of one: action. Earlier, and member Spivey Weber indicated that this next board meeting, next quarterly board meeting on this, that, and I don't want to quote, but there must be clarity. We also believe there must be clarity. Clarity on efforts to move forward is absolutely, without a doubt, necessary. And last but not least, and I'm going to take you up on your offer, Chairman Marcus, I invite this board to conduct its next meeting at the Salton Sea so that you can feel, touch, smell the sea, experience what the sea has to offer and its challenges on a daily basis. I was thinking about that earlier, and I thought, well, the next one would be July, but that's okay. It's a little warm. It's a little warm, but you know what? The sea is very accommodating, and every facility out in Imperial County has air conditioning, so we can definitely accommodate a meeting. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I think we've all been there, haven't we? At least many times, but we'll take that under advisement. It's always a good idea.
Could I ask about the RFP a little further? So in reading the letter, talk about state funding for, like you said, the ag land public benefit approach, you could get a solar revenue that kind of helps sustain those type of conversions, create incentive. In your letter, though, you just mentioned state funding. Have you spoken with Assistant Secretary Wilcox about the flexibility within, the funding that's been made available through Prop 1, or you have other ideas on applying some kind of state funding source? Which one would it be? And how do you create then a sustainable self-funding system where you convert exposed playa to effectively dust suppressed systems?
To be honest with you, no. The report came out in second week of April. We thought about it. We had our April 11th workshop. We wanted to listen to what the public had to say and what people had. We took a lot of what that was, and on the 12th, we actually developed this letter and put it in. It hasn't been vetted out totally, and I can sit up here and say Prop 1 funds, we can go through that whole process. We don't believe, though, that there's a lot of money that needs to be put into such a program. Quite frankly, we believe that this program would eventually end up paying for itself. It's going to develop, we hope, and projects that would be included in that toolbox. And once you develop a project, once you develop a program that's consistent with the needs of APCD, the needs to suppress dust out there, it's going to be thrown in the toolbox, and we think that that would be used by many others in the area to suppress dust. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's real simple, but quite frankly, we think it is. We think we can do this and encourage the landowners down there, the private landowners, to engage in, as a proactive way, dust suppression now. Because if we have to wait, and it has to come from some of the landowners down there, it may not be done until they have to do it. We want to do it proactively, and we believe, as we talk through this program, that it can be done proactively. It can be done now and not have to wait. Start the process now and not have to wait.
There's private landowners of, what will be exposed playa?
Yes, sir. I apologize, I didn't bring the map with me, but most of the landowners are on the, if you will, edge of the sea. And as we talk about a smaller sustainable sea, as the sea recedes, that land in some areas will be the first exposed land. So we're thinking of this as a proactive measure to encourage the landowners to do something today.
Might you look at JPA money as well?
We've talked a lot about the different monies, and quite frankly, I don't want to say which pot we're looking or how it would work, because it hasn't been vetted out well enough yet, and I apologize for that. But that's just a thought that we had, and again, we believe that it could provide for immediate action at the sea.
At some point, I'm going to want Bruce and Brad to come back and talk about it, because Bruce, you and I have talked about dust suppression and pilot projects for a long, long time. Do you want to just give a short form where you are? This is a perfect thing to report back on the next time in a more complete action. I know you have to consult with people too.
Yeah, we do, but one of the things we might look at is that NRCS grant, as I remember, and I've just read through it once, as I remember it had some air quality mitigation potential in it too. So I think that that makes some level of sense, and I think either Prop 1 or this NRCS grant or something else is, JPA money has a lot of restrictions on it, but some of the other stuff, I think this is a step in the right direction. I think we do need to move forward with projects like this. They're a little simpler. We can get them on the ground. They're covered under existing environmental documentation, and we can actually move forward. So commend the county for thinking of that.
And while you're there, why don't you just stay right there, because one of the things that got submitted with the letter from the county IID was a metrics for success. And there are a number of items in terms of primary goals. There's human health and air quality, habitat for fish and wildlife that depend on the sea, water quality, and feasibility. And then under secondary goals, climate change mitigation and adaptation and economic development. I assume you have looked at this. Is this something that you can see as some of the measures that we might use, or might there be additional measures?
I think those are pretty good metrics. I quite frankly think there might be a few additional ones. I think we need to sit down and think through that. But one of the things we've tried to do, and I think this is really the Salton Sea Authority's mantra, is projects have to have multiple benefits. And so if you could build a large enough area for recreation in a lake that would develop some level of economic impact, that should be considered. It's not necessarily a primary goal of the state, but it should be considered. So I thought in general those metrics were fine. The devil's always in the details. But
your various committees, including the environmental committee on this, are your committees grappling with this sort of thing and working on it in some short range time frame? Because I share the urgency.
As do I, share the urgency. I understand completely. We just got that metric, I don't know, last week, I think, or something. The IID and the county were kind enough to share it with us ahead of time, or just about release time. So I think that is one of the things that we'll take up with the committees as we move forward with the next meetings.
If I may, that metric, those public policy goals that I think are indisputable, those should have been in place before we ever got to this point with these committees. And it's not Bruce Wilcox's fault, because he's, to my mind, he's a one-man band already. But those kinds of public policy level goals, these committees, this organizational chart, it may be that I've become so jaundiced and cynical about this problem at the Salton Sea that I don't tolerate it very well. But it seems to me, if you're going to bring people together to deal with this very serious problem, you ought to know what it is you're trying to correct. And air impacts ought to be the top of the list.
And I think
That's
that's
good.
one of the reasons that we don't have any quarrels with the metrics. I mean, a lot of what was in that is things we're already considering at some level. I do appreciate the fact that somebody took the time to write them down and develop them a little bit more. But I think those are kind of some of the, we've known about the air quality and the human health issues and the wildlife issues for some time.
Well, and we've talked about them a lot. I think all the more reason to be able to articulate and in a written short form format what the goals are and where we're going. It's very hard to just talk about the stuff. That's not where we need to be at ASAP.
Now, this is very helpful, I think, what they put together.